Hello, fellow detectives. Welcome to Unlocked, the official podcast for all things Nancy Drew by Her Interactive. I'm your host, Tammy Tuckey, and this week we welcome voiceover artist Jeff Minnerly to the show. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Tammy. Thank you very much.
It's great to have you on the show. Finally, I get to speak to Tino himself. But before we talk about Tino, let's talk about your beginnings with the voiceover industry. So what kind of inspired you to pursue, character acting through just your voice?
Well, okay, the beginning of time here. So I started in radio way back when. Started doing radio stuff, and as I was a production director at a radio station, the last station I was at, and I would end up doing characters for different shows throughout the day, and then record them and plug them in and that sort of thing. And I really enjoyed that. I really liked it, and really kind of got bored with radio over time, so I left it. Kind of ventured out, did some other things over time, and actually my current wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, kind of like, you should really look into doing this again, because I hear your voices and you're doing this is fun and cool stuff and blah blah blah. So she kind of pushed me into getting back into it. I took some classes locally here in Seattle. I got a demo done and shopped it around, got on with some agents, and then just kind of grew from there. And then basically took it another step forward about, just before I started doing Tino about 12 or 13 years ago. I got studying with Nancy Wolfson in Los Angeles, and Pat Fraley, who's a huge influence for character voices for me. Studied with him, and it just kind of grew from there. It's just something I enjoy doing, and it just kind of evolved over time, slowly but surely. And boom, here I am today.
How do you usually take on a character? Do you listen? Do you wait to hear from the company to see what exactly they want you to do with the character? Or do they just say, here are some sides, give us what you got? What do you think when you read this?
Yeah, first of all, it is a tough business to break into, but persistence is key. But yeah, when I get a breakdown, I usually, if there's a picture, that helps a lot, because if it's a kind of a large round character, you can put a little weight to him and stuff like that. If he's really skinny and maybe he has some buck teeth, then you can kind of go off the picture. They'll give you like what they think it should be too. So if those sides, and like, hey, this is the person we think he is, blah 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 blah. But if there's a picture, that helps tremendously. If not, I'll just go with my instincts, I guess, and just try to create what I can and go with that and see if it works, So it's just kind of more an instinctual for me if I don't have a picture to go off of, or a lot of descriptive things in the sides. So.
Well, in particular, because your character is Tino Balducci, and he first shows up in the last train to Blue Moon Canyon, and he was so popular that they wanted him back as a phone character, basically, for the White Wolf of Icicle Creek. So when they pitched the idea to you of Tino, did they give you an image? Because sometimes people say they really don't get an image until later on into the game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I got the picture or not. I think I only got, if I recall, a description of him just in words. Like he's a brash, bold, arrogant, not too bright detective from Chicago. So I think and from that description, I think, and here's how I kind of found out the voice for Tino. This is way before your time, I'm sure, but there used to be a show on called Miami Vice. And in that show, there was a character, that was Don Johnson, was like Sonny Crockett, I think was his name. But he was thought, well, gosh, he's kind of a bold, brash, arrogant detective, and maybe not that brightest, I don't know. But so I kind of thought, that's kind of where I'm going to go with this. And he kind of had this raspy kind of thing going on there. So I kind of gave him a little rasp and kind of made him kind of, a little loud and blah, blah, blah. but he also had a little vulnerability in him too. So in the scripts, I think in the last train in Blue Moon Canyon, I think there were some vulnerable times for Tino. He was brash and loud, but underneath it all, he's kind of insecure, and because he wants everybody to know he's the best, and generally people like that have some skeletons in their closet. So that's how I came up with him. Don Johnson, I remember, was the guy in Miami Vice, kind of based it off him. A bad impression of Don Johnson. So that's where that came from. He kind of knows he's not exactly all that in a bag of chips, is what the kids used to say. But he's got that vulnerable side that comes out, and I was aware of that, and we got directed through that. Ann Collins was the writer back then for us, and she's the one that brought me on for him, and she directed, the whole scenes and that sort of thing. So she was very helpful in just pulling out, hey, for this scene, we need a little bit more like this. So yeah, we found that vulnerable side, I think, throughout the whole process with Tino. So
I love Tino. He is such a sweetheart, and I thought it would be great to actually have Tino on the show, if that's okay, to ask him a couple of questions. Does that sound okay to you?
Well, certainly. Let's see if we can conjure Tino up. See if he's in the house. Tino in? Let's go.
Yeah, Tino, where are you? Tino, I have to ask you some questions because, we know that you're a detective and you've worked with Nancy in the past. But can you tell us one of your first cases that you ever cracked?
Hey, Tammy. Hey, thanks for having me on. I tell you, you probably should know this. You should have done your research on the greatest detective that ever lived. Please, come on. But I'll tell you what I'm going to do. My first one was when I caught somebody taking donuts, slipping them out in their pockets of the Dunkin' Donuts in Chicago. So that was my first case. I caught him red-handed, basically. Kind of fell right into my hands, like every other case. That's what people say. I think it was an apple fritter, if I recall.
How dare they?
I know. Seriously.
Honestly. And, you finally kind of get into the big leagues, as they say. I think that before the case with the Blue Canyon, the train, I think you cracked like a really big case, which is why you were brought on to this particular case with the train. So can you talk a little bit about how you kind of go about solving a mystery? What are the steps that you take to find the culprit?
Well, I'll tell you what, it's not easy being the world's greatest detective. But tell you what, Tammy, all it takes is a little bit of luck and a lot of skill, mostly skill. That case you're talking about right there, people say I accidentally backed into the perps at a drive-through. It wasn't anything like that. I caught him red-handed, man, single-handedly. It just takes a lot of skill. And I got that being Tino Balducci, the world's greatest detective.
And what was it like to work with Nancy? Because usually you're a solo detective. So at this point in the last train to Blue Moon Canyon, you kind of have to collaborate to find out who did it. So at this point, you're going to have to work with Nancy, who's a little bit younger than you. So what was it like working with her?
Yeah, it was okay. I really don't like to share the spotlight with anybody, But I guess if I had to do it, Nancy was okay. I think she actually had a little bit of crush on me. I don't know. That's kind of my feeling. But it was nice to share the spotlight with her. It had to be done. So I guess if anybody had to share it with me with somebody, it's Nancy Drew. So it wasn't too bad.
And sometimes detectives stay up late just to get this case done, and they order out food. So what is your go-to order out meal besides donuts? What else do you like to order out just to save the time instead of going to a restaurant?
Come on, Tammy, are you kidding me? I'm Tino Balducci. Pizza, come on. Deep dish Chicago.
Ooh, and what toppings are your favorite?
Everything meat. As a hard-working detective, you need to keep your protein up, so that sounds good.
Well, what famous case out there would you love to finally solve?
Would it be weird if I said Amelia Earhart? I mean, this lady that flew around the world and is missing, she's disappeared forever. Fascinating. I'd really like to get into this and find out what happened to her.
If you could travel to any location throughout the world to solve a particular mystery, regardless of whether it be, a robbery or a kidnapping, where would you love to solve a mystery at?
Tahiti. Hands down, no problem. Tahiti is where I would love to be.
You could bask in the sun.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, thank you so much, Tino, for being on the show. You are amazing, and I hope we see you back in the games at some point.
Yeah, Tammy, thank you so much for having me on. And just remember, if you need a case solved, call the world's greatest detective, Tino Balducci.
My gosh, Jeff, it's like crazy because it's kind of like weird because when you do play the games, it's fun because you kind of are interacting. You guys are so great at what you do. It's fun to play these games and you really get immersed into the game and the world. So did you ever get to play the game yourself?
I never did. No, I never did get to do it. I think it was, I think they sent a copy, but I just never got around to plugging it in and doing it. So I never did make a try at that. But I think earlier you could see bits and pieces online and kind of get an idea what's going on. So, but never have played it personally. So Nancy Drew's been around for how many years? What, I don't know, 90 or whatever. But it's great that they keep doing this and providing this content for kids and especially, young girls and stuff like that to play these games. It's really a great thing that they're doing. And I'm just happy to be a part of it and part of the franchise over time. And it's been a blast.
And there's been so much that has happened since these games have come out. So can you talk a little bit about your acting experience since then and your voiceover experience since then?
Since then, well, I've kind of covered, you do commercial, narration, e-learning. There's every genre. I think I pretty much dabbed my toe into at this point. So animation was another one that we did a movie animation movie we did in Los Angeles. Got to fly down there to do called Guardians of Oz. And that was fun to do. That was a blast going down there and doing that. That was a feature-length animation thing, but generally a lot of commercial stuff, radio, some television voiceover, a lot of narration, e-learning, kind of the whole gamut. I mean, I just, I'm like a foot soldier in voiceover. I'll do what's out there. I just all kinds of opportunities. So a million things to do. So it's a blast. People aren't always in one box. Everybody's got a personality or twists to them, and that's what makes it really fun to create that and kind of like start with a baseline of this character and kind of like grow from here and do this and that. We'll make him this way. Well, maybe in this situation he's a little this way. So it's always a blast. Yeah, to find that the end result is really cool to see. So. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show. And I end with this question with all of my guests. If you could describe your experience working with Her Interactive and being a part of the Nancy Drew universe using one word, what would that be?
Fantastic.